all involved.
Yes, it was a brilliant goal. City were absolutely fantastic in that first half. I think Slot said exactly the same. They just couldn't cope with them. And this is a goal where every player in Sky Blue touches the ball in the lead up to a goal. So brilliant goal. But really poor from Liverpool's point of view defensively. You know, you think where they have Manchester City now, and if you say Manchester City are going to get out of there and going to score a goal.
It's in the quadrant, firstly, isn't it?
Exactly, from one end of the pitch to the other. But what was really good was Manchester City of late have come up with a tactic of being very narrow in midfield. And I just want to show how this impacts Liverpool in this goal, really. And as they're playing it really well. Again, it's really poor from Liverpool. They should be able to get a challenge and get a touch on the ball. But as this ball now comes in here, and we'll stop it now. Now, the knock-on effect of Manchester City having a really narrow midfield we'll get to. But this is Man City's midfield. And Doku there, if I can get that right there. That is Manchester City's midfield. And the idea is to create space for the full-backs here. And it caused Liverpool huge problems. Now, let's see the knock-on effect as we get to the goal for Liverpool. Now, the reason the midfield's really narrow is that then drags Andy Robertson inside, and it means Virgil van Dijk has got to come across. So the tactic, certainly in this first goal, yes, wonderful football. We'll see that Manchester City midfield together, and now we see Núñez venturing forward. Now Virgil van Dijk has to come across, and this is really interesting on the goal. No centre-back wants to be in that position. Keep an eye on Virgil van Dijk. He looks once. He's desperate to get back to centre-back. He looks again. Andy Robertson in there. They can't move because the ball's on that side of the pitch. Now Van Dijk there again. He's having another little look inside. Again, he's desperate to move. Andy Robertson seems fine at centre-back. He knows how tough it is at full-back. But they shouldn't move because the ball is on this side. This time it comes in again. Virgil van Dijk comes out like a proper left-back, if you like. Bit more aggressive on the front foot, but he doesn't feel comfortable. We know that, and he's desperate to get back. As soon as this ball comes across, Virgil van Dijk starts coming over now.
He's trying to go back in.
He's trying to go back in, but he shouldn't do, because Andy Robertson, even now, there. Look at Andy Robertson now. We just take that back a couple of frames. He knows exactly where that ball is going. He knows it's going back on that side, but what he's not saying is, I'm going over there. It's like, it's coming back there. Stay there, Virg, stay there. Virgil van Dijk doesn't want to. We got on that early on when he kept looking over his shoulder. And then when this ball comes across now to Ruben Diaz, there's no way Andy Robertson is going to get there before the ball gets there.
Is there any way that because that ball is still just outside the centre circle, Van Dijk thinks there's enough time to get back in?
Well, he obviously does think there's enough time, but you know the old adage, you know, players don't move as quick as the ball.
Yeah.
Now, it comes to Núñez, he feints, and then he goes to cross. Now, I just want to look at this match-up here in the middle between Konaté and Haaland. And let's not forget Konaté started the game, heavily involved in the penalty again, and he's having a really tough time. We feel like we say this week after week. Now, it's a little bit of luck for Man City because Haaland doesn't know too much about it. But what I don't understand is Konaté. Well, I tell you what, I've only just noticed this. Look at Haaland's jump now compared to Konaté.
And also, there is a bit of space there, isn't there? It's not like Haaland is on top of Konaté to stop him.
Exactly. Now, he's done this thing where he's trying to flick the ball on. Now, when I'm a defender and I flick the ball on, that's the last resort. But I'm jumping at my highest point. I can't head it away, so I'm trying to flick it on. He's not even off the ground, and he's trying to flick it on. Go and get up as high as you can. Look at Haaland and head that ball away. I don't understand at all what Konaté's trying to do. There's been no real impact from Haaland, and he's trying to flick it on. Haaland gets a little bit of luck. Maybe he deserves that luck the season he's had. He's been absolutely fantastic. But Konaté again, when Liverpool concede a goal or a problem, is at the heart of it, and he's got a big problem away from home. A lot of his big performances this season, Manchester United, he played well. Real Madrid in midweek, he played really well. Arsenal, early in the season, he played really well. But away from home, which is when you need your centre-backs. Your centre-backs need to play well away from home if you're going to get results. And too often this season, he's gone missing away from home.
Manchester City were dominant, and they fully deserved their victory. I think everybody would agree with that. Liverpool will feel that they could have, that this might not have changed the overall result, but it would have meant they were in with the shout.
This should have gone 1-1. For me, it's a goal. And we'll just look at it from this angle. And when you look at this angle, you may think, OK, I can understand why it's been, not given. You look at Andy Robertson's position there. Is he impacting the goalkeeper? Now, there's a better angle now to see this. Now, I'm going to really slow this down. Because what a lot of people have looked at is when this ball now comes to Virgil van Dijk's head. Let's just knock it on a couple. And they've looked at there. It's just left Virgil van Dijk's head. OK? And if you stop it there, I can totally understand why that would be given maybe as offside, because Andy Robertson looks really close to the goalkeeper.
And the line of the law that we are looking at here is an obvious action by a player that clearly impacts an opponent's ability to play the ball.
Yeah.
So it's what Robertson does to whether it affects Donnarumma.
OK. So we've got to keep an eye on Donnarumma here and where he shifts his weight. Now, right now, if he's going to dive, you could say, OK, Andy Robertson is in his way. But we're going to try and move this on really, really slowly. Donnarumma's weight is going to his right. He thinks the header for Van Dijk is going to go to his right. Look at his foot. So he's moving actually the opposite way. His foot is now planted now. Exactly the time the ball goes over Andy Robertson's head. So that is the true moment we should be looking at, not when it leaves Van Dijk's head, when it goes over Andy Robertson's head and he makes an action to get out of the way of the ball.
So by saying that he's already made the dive before Robertson ducks, the duck, he isn't basically waiting to see whether Robertson's going to get a touch on it. That's what you're saying. So the duck is irrelevant because he's already made his decision to go. He
can see everything because his initial movement was to the right. He's now diving full stretch. Andy Robertson right now does not impact the goalkeeper one bit because he's also already diving full stretch for the Virgil van Dijk header because initially he's misread it. And that's why all his weight has gone onto his right foot because he thinks the ball is going to go in the other side of the goal. So he can see it clearly and he's diving full stretch. And Andy Robertson getting out of the way of the ball, when you look at the line that you've just mentioned in terms of the rules of offside, has absolutely no bearing on what happens here.
It was out on the field and therefore VAR would have seen no clear and obvious reason to overturn that. And yet you wonder, given everything that you've broken down there, whether they could have gone to Chris. Actually, because it's subjective, do you want to go and just have a look at it?
I don't understand. I have a little. Arne Slot mentioned this in his interview after the game about it took 13 seconds before the linesman's flag went up. So there was obviously a lot of communication between the referee and the linesman. Now, if they don't give the decision right away, what I don't understand is that why not just let it go to VAR? The ball's gone in. You're not quite sure if it's offside or not. You haven't put your flag up. Let VAR look at it. I don't understand this idea of, oh, we've got to give a decision on the pitch. 13 seconds later, they lifted the flag. So I think, listen, we've mentioned about Manchester City maybe getting a little bit of luck with the Haaland goal. Liverpool have definitely been unlucky there.
Manchester City's 3-0 win at the Etihad was a blunt assessment of the gap that currently separates the two clubs. City dominated territorially and technically from the start. Erling Haaland opened the scoring. Nico Gonzalez's long-range strike doubled the lead just before halftime, and Jeremy Doku's brilliant solo goal in the second half made the scoreline emphatic. The visitors controlled possession, moved the ball at pace, and exposed Liverpool's structural frailties. Liverpool's problems were systemic rather than accidental. The Reds managed very few clear chances and registered only one shot on target as City's tempo repeatedly forced errors in transition. The full-back channels were targeted throughout, with Doku and City's wide movement creating overloads that unsettled Liverpool's defensive shape. Georgi Mamardashvili made a notable penalty save early on, but ultimately the collective defensive organization proved insufficient. Tactically, Pep Guardiola's plan worked to near perfection. Patience in possession, quick switches to the wings, and ruthless exploitation of half spaces. Arne Slot's side struggled to regain control of midfield. When Liverpool pressed, City's quick, short passes and off-ball runs opened them up. The disallowed Van Dijk header, ruled out for a tight offside, was a rare moment of hope that was extinguished by VAR, but it did not alter the broader picture of City dominance. Sky Sports pundit Jamie Carragher, analyzing the match, argued that Liverpool lacked both the aggression and the defensive compactness necessary to compete at this level, a critique that underlined the urgent questions over selection and collective discipline. Club sources and post-match reaction pointed to the need for clearer defensive leadership and quicker solutions in transition as Liverpool regroup for the fixture run ahead. The consequence is immediate. City reinforce their title push while Liverpool drop points that make their season trajectory harder to predict. The practical takeaways are stark: improved set-piece organization, tighter midfield control, and clearer defensive communication. Otherwise, the Reds risk slipping further behind while the calendar tightens and expectations rise.